Hello, back to my big shelf clear out, look through, sorting out shelf number 4 to celebrate 3 years on BookTube. This shelf is going to be mostly art books, and I can almost hear lots of people turning off their computers or whatever they're viewing this on. It's a small amount of us who are keen, die-hard art fans. Let me see, is there anything else I can tempt you with? There's a large comedy book, there's a book on music, mostly art. Right, brace yourself. First one is actually a classic. It's Anthony Trollope. It's Phineas Redux. I read Phineas. I have a problem with Trollope in that if I start to read the book, I normally have to keep going on. But I read the original Phineas, and then in this book he's coming back and his life has changed substantially. I'll not say how, but it all started to get quite tortured in terms of somebody's will, and I just kind of went, oh. So, but I love that cover picture. The idea of having a newspaper that is so large you can snooze behind it, you can be invisible, lost in it for so long. So I think I probably will read this book, but plot lines that have wills in them and stuff and lots of money aren't necessarily my very favourite thing. It has to be said. Okay. Douglas Adams, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. This book pops up. This is a trilogy in 5 parts, as they say. It began as a radio show, it became a book, and then successively books were added. So it was meant to be a trilogy, and then it kept going. Typically English humour and set, but also science fiction. So if either of those are yours and you have not come across this work, I find that very hard to believe, but if you haven't come across it, give him a whirl. The first one is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and the whole kind of world has become known as that. Don't let that be a hole in your bookshelf. Okay. Very old book, much older even the writing of it, Baroness Orczy. This is El Dorado, a story of the Scarlet Pimpernel. The Scarlet Pimpernel exists to rescue French aristocrats who are about to be beheaded during the French Revolution, which I think was something around 1780s or something, the end of the 18th century. And the Scarlet Pimpernel has very daring rescues, and there are tales of adventure, daring do. The very first one is also a love story. There's a love story element in this as well, so it's a bit romantic, but it is set in those older times. This is a particularly old book. It's possibly so old that it might not have Modern Stout Limited London might not say what year, because very old books tended not to comment on what year they were printed in. But it has got that faded look around the edges, cloth bound, and even it's slightly embossed in the front cover. I don't know if you can tell. Let's sort of angle it by the light. You might see it's got grooved in design. But the stories are well set up, and you do think, how is he going to get out of this one? So, fun to read. An art book of a particular kind, The Passion in Art, by Richard Harries, one of my favourite art historian commentators. The Passion means the death of Christ, so you will see lots of different artists' styles of representing him. And this is done by Ashgate, I think, yeah. Ashgate, who are particularly specialise in academic and thoughtful ways of looking at. So that, for example, is a Chagall, the White Crucifixion. And of course, the figure of Christ on the cross goes way back in terms of art history, and many of the paintings you would now go to see that are set in medieval times will have an element of the Christian story in it, and the Bible in it. This is part of the Ashgate Studies in Theology, Imagination and the Arts. So that's a definite keeper for me. And next we have Malcolm Guite, the poet, Mariner. A Voyage with Samuel Taylor Coleridge. So this is a biography of Samuel Taylor Coleridge, but looked at through the lens of the poem The Mariner, which is the albatross appears and he shoots the albatross, and so it tells his story of his life is pretty astonishing anyway, and it seems to somehow conform because there was a lot of wreckage in his life. He unfortunately became addicted to painkillers that were given at the time without thinking, and had to live the rest of his life with the consequences. But he started out, this is him young, and of course had a major influence on Wordsworth, the two of them together. So if you're reading about either of them, you should be reading about the other one as well, I guess. But yeah, this is a fantastic book. A real chunkster. So it is properly interesting, proper good signed index, and notes on each chapter. So if you're interested in the life of Coleridge, this is one to get hold of, and it's over 400 pages long. And if you like romantic poetry as written by Coleridge and Wordsworth, then of course this will be of interest to you as well. Okay. From the sublime to the purposely ridiculous, Dilbert. Future, Scott Adams, writing about our familiar character. But this book is telling you about the genesis of Dilbert thriving on stupidity in the 21st century. And so if you are interested in the comic strip, that book will tell you about how it started and how it developed. To Be a Cat by Matt Haig. A chilling story of people who are cats who are around and about, and humans who disappear, and then cats appear. Well told. A well told tale, I guess you could say. I think it's better if I lift down a handful rather than each one keep turning. Might be better. Okay, The Third Policeman, Flann O'Brien. I'm going to get rid of this book because it starts in a really chilling way with a murder, which is completely unnecessary and horrible. Laugh with Leacock is to do with Stephen Leacock. A wheel of a laugh, nonsense novels, frenzied fiction, and further foolishness of all kinds. How about that for a subtitle? By the king of humourists, Stephen Leacock. This is quite an old thing. Corgi Saint, 3 shillings and 6. The price alone tells you that it is quite a while ago. Boarding house geometry, little articles that were written in humorous magazines. To be honest, I haven't lifted this. I'll have to look again to see if it's worth keeping, although it's a classic. Robert Benchley, another older humorist from times past. 1 minute, please. Robert Benchley. As I said, with the other book I had on shelf number 2, I think, he was around the time of Dorothy Parker. They both worked for, I think it was Vanity Fair. And he was a very smart and funny writer. What College Did to Me. Coffee, Meg and Ilk, please. Open bookshelves. Bookcases. Well, I'll have to read that, won't I? The Lost Language. So, very smart humour. Con Campbell, Outreach and the Artist. Shaping the Gospel with the Art, Sharing the Gospel with the Arts. So that's better. 1. I have to look at that. I'm not sure I'll keep that. A book which I think has been lent. I will have to check out and see if it needs to be returned. The Story We Find Ourselves In. By Further Adventures of a New Kind of Christian, Brian D. McLaren, about people who are of faith, the Christian faith, but struggle with the church as it currently is. Osborne Book of Art Projects for younger people. Just lots of fun, 60, 80 projects using paints, pastels, crayons, ink pens. I mean, you can amuse yourself as an adult as well, quite easily, or make your own cards. So, lots of fun there. Oh, a little CD, In-Person World Poets, that's escaped from a particular book it needs to be put back together with. Then we have The Liberated Imagination by Leland Ryken, thinking Christianly about the arts. A little personal notebook, which definitely needs to be kept, and I think I probably need to have a look at it and see what's in it. Signs of Subsidence books. And we're back to some more classic books. Barchester Towers, Anthony Trollope. Sorry, I was thinking Powell there in my mind. Automatically went Anthony Powell. No, Anthony Trollope. Which will be easy to find anywhere you like, but this is quite a nice version. It's light. It's just a paperback, but it's a penguin, solid enough it will last. So that's a good thing. And A Family Heirloom, Little Men by Louisa M. Alcott, which follows Jo on from having started her school for boys and what she does there. So very off their time little illustrations. Printed Juvenile Productions Limited, London. So it's saying you've got Little Women, then Good Wives, Little Men and Jo's Boys. If you have enjoyed reading the adventures of Jo, Meg, Amy and their friends, you should also read the other books in the Merlin series that deal with the same characters. To get the greatest enjoyment from these books, they should be read in the order shown above, so that you can follow the events in the correct order. And the word shown is S-H-E-W-N, which is quite endearing, old-fashioned. So Jo's Boys is the last one. You can see again the very much fading along the spine. So that would have been the original colour of the book and stronger, and then it's gone to being this kind of grey. But a keeper. Similar Jo's. Oh, this is Jo's Boys again. Ooh. Oh no, that was Little Men. Sorry, this is Jo's Boys. The last one properly. I want to keep same vintage. I think I need to pull the curtains a bit. There's a bit of a glare. Okay, I think that should be better now. Right. Here come the art books that I have mentioned. The Curator's Handbook by Adrian George even. Museums, commercial galleries, independent spaces. I cannot praise this book enough by Thames and Hudson. I set out to do my very first exhibition without a clue, and this book walked me through it, all the different parts, how you set out doing an exhibition. So introduction, starting off, from idea to reality, proposals, pitching, planning, budgets and fundraising, contracts, negotiations, exhibition publications and merchandise, putting a show together, working with the artists and so forth. The weeks before the opening, the installation was chapter 9, chapter 10 the days before opening and the opening day, chapter 11 the press opening and private view, during and after. So it is just so brilliant, lots of little quotes that tell you exactly what to do, and you just literally follow them through, and they say before, here's at this point you do this, at this point you do this, and so it goes on. Absolutely fantastic, the Curator's Handbook. If you belong to a group of artists who are ever going to do a group show, that's worth having, because you can keep going back. You'll probably have an idea what you want to do, but it will step you through and remind you of anything you might have missed. Now I'm going to grab a quick bit of orange juice. I'm getting a wee bit dry here. And we're halfway through the shelf. Okay. Resurrecting Easter. How the West lost and the East kept the original Easter vision. Brilliant. It's about the ways in which the Christian church split to be the Orthodox, which is the Eastern Christianity, and then the Western is the one we're probably more familiar with in the UK and the USA. And this is the story of someone who went and looked at the older pictures and the style and a particular part of the story at Easter, which is not usually features in more recent pictures, which is where Christ dies, goes down to hell and rescues people who are righteous and have died and takes them away. So it's called the harrowing of hell. It's a pretty amazing thing. So this book also is great for old sites and old churches and murals and so on to do with faith and art. Now, more generally, the world's greatest art. Now, I think it is pretty much UK and USA central, but it was brought for me by a friend, which is lovely, and published by Flame Tree Publishing, and it just kind of starts and goes all the way through. I think it's done by year. Yeah, which means you get one from each different kind of artist, and it's starting with Cimabue, which is 13th to 15th centuries, Gothic medieval, all the way through. We've got Mr. Andy Warhol doing his Marilyn print towards the end. 1 page a day, and it's a great way to look, literally to flick through art. Let me see if I can do a little flick through for you. And you can see styles will be evolving, different artists will be coming through. And it's a book you can open at random any day, look at one picture, see, do you like it? And then the facing page will tell you about that artist and that picture. And lo and behold, you will gradually be building up. For example, here's a Rembrandt, and then this tells you about him. And you're generally learning art history, but just a little bit at a time. Now, a book that is so large that it's going to cause a landslide, I think, here, but I absolutely love it so much. I even have another copy unnecessarily because my fear of separation is so severe. The Oxford Book of Humorous Prose, Frank Muir. And it's from William Caxton to P.G. Wodehouse. P.G. Wodehouse died in 1975, I think it was, roughly. So it's not... There's obviously far more people since then have been writing, but this is a great overall introduction, and it's hefty. Pulled together by Frank Muir, who was known in the UK for working in the BBC, being the BBC consultant on comedy, and appearing regularly on radio shows as an entertaining raconteur. Isle of Noises. This is Conversations with Great British Songwriters. Fantastic book to have because of who it covers. The end papers are just fabulous. But it literally interviews a writer and it will show you the song lyrics written on the back of the fag packet or whatever. Ray Davies, Johnny Marr, Neil Tennant, Chris Lowe, Sting, Andy Partridge, Madness, Jarvis Cocker, Noel Gallagher, Laura Marling, Lily Allen. And it takes part of an interview and it's getting bold what the question is. It's asked and then the answer that's been given has been typed out. And it does genuinely come across as a range of different voices having a conversation. It's very readable. And again, you can dip and dive into it. If you're somebody who writes lyrics or knows somebody who does, this is gold dust because it's like having that conversation. And obviously as time's going on, these people are passing away and their voices are being lost. But this book has collected them. So as you can see, we are getting towards the end. Let's crack on. A lot of people seem to do this in a much more elegant way. I don't know. Anyway, maybe they've programmed their books not to slip and slide and fall. I've got two little books from a series I really want to recommend to you. As you can see, I got them reduced for 99p, but they're not expensive. And they're called A Crash Course in Modern Art, Crash Course, Corey Bell. These, and then this one is Design, Crash Course in Design. There's a Crash Course in Photography we will come across at some point. These are fabulous. Tiny little books. I don't know if they're still in print or not. Let's see what year this was. Published 2001 by Silverdale Books. Sorry, 2003. In Leicester, England. So, but if they come up anywhere near you, grab them, grab them, grab them. Each page will give you an example of whatever the design is. Across the top, they have a timeline, which is saying what's happening in the world at the time. They tend to have also little funky, interesting stories. They put in little boxes to put a special, interesting quote or fact. They're well illustrated, but you're getting a lot of quick summary of a particular style. And so it goes on. Each page is giving you a whole lot of information in one, and as you can see, you can take it as reading it all. You can just dip and dive, read one of these, or read this across this, and they are just brilliant. Okay, so that's Modern Art. This is a Crash Course in Design. Warmly recommend, warmly recommend. It's a bit of a landslide of books to the other side of me at the moment. This one, S.J. Perelman, That Old Gang of Mine. The early and essential S.J. Perelman. S.J. Perelman was an American humorist who wrote some humour for Marx Brothers during their films, but was very famous as a humorist and writer in New Yorker and other things. He did his own drawings, which were these faux kind of wood block. And this book is full of ones he did when he was at college and just after, and they are weird, strange and wonderful. And then the words underneath began to correlate to the picture less and less and less and less until it became really completely nothing at all to do with that. So very old dated humour, but just kind of making fun of things. Learn the art game, fun, fame, banana oil. And then with this, underneath the story says, a big value pork pie this week certainly goes to little Teddy, only 18 months old. How do you like Mama's new silk dress, Teddy? Inquired his mother. It's swell, replied Ted briefly. And just think, Teddy, all this silk was provided by a poor little worm, mused the good woman. Are you referring to Papa? Asked Teddy artlessly. Pretty raw one. Hey, boys. Okay, the humour is dated. But as you can see, the relation to the actual picture above is pretty slim. How funky is that? So I think it has to be kept because no other library on earth, well, it was a humorous library, but it would be very hard to find that again. And if you're not quite sure, try going down to your little local library and saying, do you have any books by S.J. Perelman, the famous humorist, and watch them scratch their heads. Slightly more recently, The Medium is Massage, Marshall McLuhan, Quentin Fiore. The famous quote from Marshall McLuhan is that the medium is the message, but this is the massage, and he has features of hands throughout. The text has lots of picture elements in it, and the hand is nicely in amongst it as well. So it's a very unusual book thinking about communication. Right. A companion guide to the Scottish National Gallery of Modern Art. So if you ever visit, what can I nearly crossover. And you think, well, what am I going to see in the Gallery of Modern Art? You're going to see these pictures, and the text will tell you who to buy and a little bit about them. Okay. They have extensive holdings of surrealist art from one particular collector. Okay. Sybil and Cyril, cutting through time, Jenny Ugulo, and the two people named were cutters on litho. It's well written, it's well illustrated, and it's about Cyril Power and Sybil Andrews, and sort of 1920s onwards. So they had a real sort of energy in their lino cuts and prints, and they had quite different styles, but they were close friends and collaborators. Hence, subtitle is Cutting Through Time. Now, can you see that sort of glow happening? Yes. That's because the book I'm about to show you has got a mirror-like surface on it, because it's about selfies. Selfie. How We Became So Self-Obsessed and What It's Doing to Us by Will Storr. An interesting book looking at how the dying self, the tribal self, the perfectible self, the bad self, the good self, the special self. Each one is featuring on a particular person's story and background, and it's kind of a little wander through it. It's not essential, I don't think, for me. I'm going to be donating this, but it does have a fabulous cover to brighten any day. And when I saw it, I just thought the cover fitted so absolutely perfectly. The design was just brilliant. But that's a pass on to somebody else, because it's not tightly written. It becomes a wandering, not very well linked story. So yeah. Now, we had mentioned Douglas Adams. Here are the radio scripts from which the original story happened. The original radio scripts by Douglas Adams, and they were edited by Jeffrey Perkins. So it looks like a radio script. This is for the nerds amongst us. Come out of the shadows, you know who you are. But it's got more humour and more comments and different things apart from the book. And of course the wonderful, wonderful sound effects, which just broke new ground and were fantastic. And the BBC was an incredibly popular series. BBC went, how wonderful, fantastic, and continues to make, has just since gone back to making dramas that are chink, 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 a cup of tea. You know, all the standard ones you would get as sound effects, whereas this, because it was science fiction, was incredibly inventive. Okay, here's a little book that I wrote after a holiday in Paris, which I knew would be a special holiday of a lifetime, and I kept a little journal, and then I just bound it into this very badly bound, spiral bound piece. And let's see. This is about going to a loo in the Trocadero near the Eiffel Tower. Before queuing to get in, I went to the ladies. There, a plain sign proclaimed a charge of 2 francs. The woman in front of me was a middle-aged, frumpy English woman, let's call her Hermione, completely at a loss as to why she was blocked from entering by the toilet attendant. Silently, I pointed to the sign requesting payment. But I don't have any change, Hermione protested, and went back outside to get money. When I emerged from the toilet, she was once more confronting the attendant. There seemed to be an entente incordiale over the money in hand. But I don't have any change, insisted Hermione. Give her what you have and she will give you change, I said, feeling like a nursery teacher. This did not seem to settle the disagreement, so Hermione proffered me Exhibit A, the coin. Is this not enough? She asked, surprised. It was a 20 centime piece, which is worth about 2 pence at the time. So I come to Paris to give lectures on currency to English tourists. After I explained, the English woman went out again to get the right money from an accomplice outside. I give a Gallic shrug to the poor toilet attendant. My French isn't good enough to fully express my apology for the English. The Americans may think Paris is a suburb of New York, but as any English tourist will tell you, it is in fact the green belt of London. So, though, things like that. Okay. I wrote that. Okay. You two show love, deeply love this book. It's not that I'm a die-hard U2 fan, but because it talks about the process of putting on a show, all the people involved, this is so heavy and big, it's really hard to hold. And all the behind-the-scenes work that has gone into it. And of course that makes it a mixture of the arts, and of course I love that, where it's music and it's dance and it's lights and it's television and it's, performance, it's embodied, it's just the whole 9 yards. Was a bit of music. So let's see. This is written by Diana Scrimgeour, and if I can get a wee look at the chapter titles, I'll let you know kind of what it is, who they speak to, and I really should be getting my reading glasses out at this point. So they talk about the pictures, the words on various tours, video production, filming, wardrobe, band, crew, recording, the graphics, the promoters, the media, the charity shows, the friends, contributors, production, sound, tour management, agents, management. And so if you're interested in bands and so forth, and the whole art form of producing a show, this I think is just brilliant. Okay. It's just called U2 Show, and let me see. It was printed by Orion, and I'm not sure that it's going to say. We get the back, as they sometimes do, where you least expect it. Yes, in tiny print, of course, but I'm going to have to struggle to read. 2004. U2 Show. And I think we're coming to the end here. Let me see. Excuse me. Oh, here's a delight. Back in the jug again. Jeffrey Williams wrote the wording and Ronald Searle did the drawings. And they're about a little schoolboy who hates being at school. And they're written and badly spelt, just the way a little child would. And he's staying at the boarding school and hates the masters and so on. And it's looking a bit like it's going to split the spine at the moment, but like this is called A Bright Future for Youth. The way it's spelt will give you a hint as to the humour. Absolutely delightful. Brilliant. More please if there was any such thing. And there we end the tour.